Yes, say hi, Chloe. Good morning, y'all. Day 26, post Christmas day. So, this is the 26th of December, and we are on day 26 of doing the hard things. So, good morning, everyone. I hope you had an amazing Christmas holiday. We are out here walking off all the dang food we've been eating and stuffing ourselves while napping, which is the big disaster for the weight gain before the new year. So we are out here walking. Now, I don't have a lot of time. Battery may die out. Chloe, come because I got to go to the car. But I wanted to hop on here real quick and talk about the power of pivoting. And if this phone dies, I have to come back and do a part two. But here's the thing. I was reading this morning Marie Forleo's book, Everything is Figure It Outable is the name of the book by Marie Forleo. Amazing book, wonderful book, great principles. Very practical principles about making shifts and moves in life. And one of the things that you'll read, I don't want to spoil it, but I highly recommend everybody go get the book. And I don't know, I'm trying to figure this out. I think Kindle has a plan where you can pay, I think $10 a month, and you get unlimited Kindle books. I thought I did it, but right now I'm getting a bunch of samples, so I got to figure it out. But go check it out because I've been reading a lot of books since I've been in Florida. So here's the deal. One of the things that I love about her book is she starts off talking about her journey of how she got to where she is, right? So I'm talking about Marie Forleo. Hey, good morning, everybody. If you just joined us, if y'all don't know, we're doing 90 Days to Do Hard Things. Hey, Dee, what's up, girl? We're headed up your way shortly. But here's the thing. Marie Forleo starts off talking about how she went to college, was the valedictorian in her school. She ended up going to get a job on Wall Street and how she hated it, right? She said all these people were making millions of dollars on Wall Street, but they were spiritually bankrupt, right? Their life was bankrupt. They would spend most of their time going to clubs, doing things, blowing their money because they were spiritually bankrupt. And she was like, she heard a spirit, her voice tell her like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I got this degree, I'm on Wall Street, this is like the coveted job, and I should be happy. And so she told her boss, she was like, I'll be right back. I just need to go out for a second. And so she said she ran out of her job on Wall Street and ran to a church. She's Catholic. So she said it was a Catholic church close to her job on Wall Street. So she went to the church and she was just praying like, God, I hear this voice inside of me telling me that this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. What does this mean? And so she said, as she was praying, it was the voice was telling her like, call your dad. So she called her dad and she told her dad, she was like, Dad, I'm here at my job. She was just crying. She was like, I just feel like this is not where I'm supposed to be. This is not what I'm supposed to do. So her dad told her, he was like, well, hey, if you feel you need to quit your job, quit your job. Like, you're young, you can figure it out, right? So she quit her job, and next thing you know, she went on this series of different types of jobs. She went from thinking she wants to go to design school, to working as an editor for different magazines, to you name it, right? Until finally, she came across the concept of life coaching. And she said the minute that she saw this, pass me the charger, baby. The minute she saw this concept of life coaching, she was like, aha, this is one of the things that she mentioned when she was going through all these changes is feeling crazy because she kept making changes. Every time she would get a job and pursue something, she would go through this process of working there, being excited for like 6 months, and then realizing like, nah, this isn't it, right? And so she says she went through this process of like feeling like a fraud and, imposter syndrome and all these different things, all these different emotions that she was going through. But one of the things that she kept doing was she kept telling herself that she can figure it out. Everything is figure it outable. Everything is figure it outable. So essentially what happened is she ended up letting go of all these jobs that she thought were the image of what she wanted. And she did the most coveted thing that any young soul would do, right? To pursue her dreams. She became a waitress, right? I can relate because I did that. She became a waitress. She waited tables while she was building her life coaching career, right? And she talked about how it took her 7 years of trying things and doing things and experimenting with things to get her to where she ultimately started getting in her groove and getting her life going to who she is today. Now, who doesn't know Marie Forleo? Well, just go Google her. She's everywhere. She's on Oprah. She's in all the right circles. And she is a phenomenon today in the world of entrepreneurship. And while I was reading this book, I was like, you know what? It is so important to know that it's okay to pivot when necessary. Life is very boring when you force yourself to be stuck in something that you know is not a good fit. And every time I would do a speech, I remember speaking. I did a speech years ago in Denver. And I think I was in Chicago. And I used the analogy of the Amazing Race. And I talked about the fact that your life, that's one of my favorite reality shows, is The Amazing Race. And the reason why is because if you think about The Amazing Race, everybody starts off at this certain destination, and you run and get a clue. That clue gives you direction of the next step that you need to go to. You go through that process, get to the next step. Guess what? You get the next clue. And that's how life is. As much as we would love to get the entire blueprint for the game and know all the clues up front, that's not what life is about. It's like a scavenger hunt where every step you take, you get one clue here. You grab that clue, and once you get that clue, you follow the directions and you go to the next step, and you go to the next step, right? It's always where you're going to get a clue, and that clue will help get you closer to where it is that you're called to be. And here's the unfortunate thing. Most of us feel like one clue should be the end all be all for the rest of our life. We get a clue, go to college, go get a degree, become a software engineer, or become a nurse, or become an attorney, or become this, and we feel like that's the end all be all, when in actuality it might be the starting point that leads us somewhere. But our spirit is saying, this is just a start. It's time to shift gears and go in this direction. It's time to try this thing. It's time to do this thing. And here's the thing that I will be honest with you guys about. It's very scary to live your life pivoting, right? When you're going in a certain direction, and you feel led and compelled to do things differently, and so you switch gears and you go over here because to some people it looks unstable. There's a difference between being indecisive and unstable versus pivoting, which is why I put pivoting here, because a lot of us, being unstable and indecisive is when you're moved by fear. It's when there's emotional barriers that are blocking you in from actually making a decision, right? But when you pivot, it's when you are moved by faith. You make a move, you get to a certain destination, and you realize, okay, I'm going to plant my feet here. You plant your feet, but then you get that inkling in your spirit saying this season is over, right? So when you are pivoting, you've made a decision to be somewhere, and you've committed to that process, and you've worked it through until that season is up, versus when you're indecisive, right? And you're unstable is when you never make a decision, and you're always looking for an out. They're two totally different things. I'm talking about pivoting. How many times have you been somewhere, done the same thing over and over again, been committed to a process, but it's time for change, right? It's time to shift gears. That where you are, you've exhausted every possible avenue for that place in that space, and your spirit is telling you to shift gears. It is okay to make that pivot because our spirit speaks through us. I'm reading a book now that my dad got me called Conversations with God, and it talks about how basically we all get these thoughts, and your thoughts become feelings. Your feelings are designed to move you to take action, and when you take action, it leads you to a result, right? And that's how our God speaks to us, right? Through spirit, right? We'll get these signs, we'll get these feelings, we'll get these kind of gut emotional things where it's like, I feel in my gut that it's time to make a shift. I don't know how to make the shift or where to go, but I know it's time. And when you start acknowledging that it's time to make that shift, what happens is doors and opportunities begin to present themselves, and they open doors that things start coming to you, and it's like, oh, I never expected it to come this way, but maybe this is a step that I need to take to make that shift. And you start having things that are presented to you that help you be positioned to make that shift. But that's what pivoting looks like, as opposed to unstable indecisiveness. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ability to pivot. Now, if anybody know what it means to pivot, it's me, right? I have been through so many different stages and phases in my life, and although sometimes it can be a little overwhelming as a process, I do not regret it one bit, because I tell people all the time, the more that you get to explore and experience things in the world, the more you begin to discover what you do and don't want in life. And so it's as important to know what you want as it is as important to know what you don't want, what you don't like, right? And the more you experience things, the more you begin to get clear on, oh, I don't like this, but I love this. I tried that. It wasn't a good fit, but this feels more like home for me, right? And what happens is things begin to come to alignment, right? And so when you pivot, when you give yourself permission to pivot, there's a boldness that begins to develop in you where you are okay with change. You are okay with, you say yes to opportunities. You start positioning yourself to make shifts. You start positioning yourself to get connected to the right people and the right, doors opening and things like that. And what ultimately begins to happen, guys, is just like the Amazing Race. You get clues, it leads you to certain places, and you end up going to places and spaces and opportunities that you never knew existed because you were open for change. I see so many people trapped because they stay stuck in a place that they feel obligated to be in for the rest of their life. And what happens is they start denying what their spirit is telling them to do. They start denying the doors that are opening up for them, that are leading them to new opportunities, because they are convincing themselves that they have to stay stuck in one place their entire life. And I'm here to tell y'all, guys, look, life is an adventure, right? I get it that, and I'm very much a unicorn spirit. So that means that I don't live my life in this world. I tell people I live in this world, but I'm not of this world. We're spirit first, and we're spirits having a human experience. We're not human beings having a spirit experience. So I allow my spirit to lead me, guide me, and float me through this earth, right? Because I know that this is temporary. I'm here for an assignment. I'm going to come. I'm going to go, right? The day will come where Nicole is no longer here. I'll be saying farewell, but I want to make sure that I've completed that mission and I've had those experiences while I was here. So with that said, allow myself to trust fully, knowing that God will lead me through my spirit, open up doors, position me for the right opportunities. What has happened, guys, is that we've been able to go through some processes. Now, it's not always fun. It's not always easy, because there's a human side, right, that gets emotionally entangled into certain safety nets. But the reality is when you give yourself permission to pivot, you open up doors that lead you and elevate you to places and spaces that your human mind could not have promoted you to, right? And so I want to encourage you guys, like, whatever this means for you, some of you guys are going into a new year stuck in old places and spaces that you should have walked away from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It can be relationships. It can be career paths. It can be mental states, right? Some of you guys are stuck in the same mental state in 1999, and we going into 2020. You have to ask yourself, what pivots do I need to make going into this new season? What shifts, what gears? If you think about pivoting, I played basketball, right? But when you think about pivoting, it's being able to abruptly make a shift in a turn, right? Abruptly. Like, you in basketball, you don't have time. You got to pivot, turn, do what you got to do to get to the person who got the ball, right? You got to know when it's time to pivot and abruptly make that shift. There is no, let me sit on it, let me wait on it, let me hold out, let me do this, let me plan for it, let me this. It's knowing it's time to make a shift and make a decision to make that shift. Because the minute you make a decision, you'll realize that every resource that you need will support you in that shift. And I tell people all the time, decide, D-E means cut off, side means to kill off. So when you decide to do something, you kill off every other option but that one decision that you've made, and you say it has to happen, right? When you make a decision, you're saying that I'm deciding that this thing will manifest. It has to manifest, because that's the only option that exists. I no longer am opening myself up to saying maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's no, I've made a decision to do this thing. I'm going to move forward in doing this thing, and I'm going to open myself up to the opportunities and the people and the resources that are going to lead me to support this decision to make everything happen. One of my favorite books is The Alchemist, right? And it talks about when you make a decision, the world conspires in your favor to bring that decision to life. And you have to start making decisions to pivot in the direction that you know you are called to go in. Now, here's the thing for me. I've made a decision to do 90 days of doing the hard things challenge. This is day 26, right? And my goal was every day for 90 days, document my process of making hard choices. And one of my biggest hard choices was being committed for 90 days to shoot videos. We started doing that, and I cannot tell you how many doors have opened as a result of this happening by me saying yes to doing this every single day. There's been a level of self-coaching and internal spiritual guidance that I've been getting in this whole process because I made a decision to do these 90 days of the hard things. When you make a decision, you commit and you do the work, then things will begin to all formulate together in your favor so that that very decision that you made will begin to manifest and all the resources that you need will begin to unfold. So I want to encourage you guys as we are entering into a new year. Christmas is come and gone. Now we're looking forward to New Year's Eve. We will be in 2020 in 6 days, I think, right? Or 5 days, something like that.
And the decade is over.
And the decade going into a new decade. Right?
I'm just gonna miss the 2000s.
So we're gonna wrap this up, y'all. Thank you for joining me. Day 26 is doing the hard thing. Figure out what you need to pivot in moving forward in 2020. Do what you gotta do. Me and my baby girl just finished up a walk. You wanna say hey, Chloe? You say hey. Where you at? Where you at, girl? Where you at? Where you at? And so we're headed to get us a nice little coffee drink. They can't see that, baby. They can't see that. All right, so y'all have a great, awesome day, and figure out what you need to do to pivot, people. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.